so clear, a river so clear.
Let us now join in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning. I've adapted them from a reading by Chip Rausch that is called Be Here in This Moment. We're about to enter a sacred time. We're about to make this time and this place sacred by our presence and our intention. Please turn off or silence your phones or other electronic devices. And as you do so, I invite you also to turn down the volume on your fears, to remove your own masks, virtual and real, and to loosen the armor around your heart. Close your eyes if you feel like it. Now, don't take my word for it. Do it as slowly as you need to. Take a deep breath or two. If you take a little risk with the good people that are around you, you will find that they have the same needs as you do. Take a breath in and a breath out. Let go of the expectations placed on you by others and those that you have placed on yourself. Drop the guilt and the shame, not to shirk accountability, but in honest expectation of the possibility of forgiveness. Let go of the thing you said the other day. Let go of the thing you dread next week. Be here in this moment. Breathe. Be here.
So mantra is one of these things that is, at a face value, very simple. There's nothing so great to understand about it. And in many cases, the greater our philosophical understanding of it might prevent us from having a really authentic experience of it. You can explain what joy is to someone, but much easier if they've experienced it and they can say, oh yes, I've experienced this. You can explain love to someone, but much better to resonate with the fact that we've all experienced love. We all know what that feels like, and if we're aware of what's going on in our body, we know where it's happening. It's actually happening. The feeling is in a physical place where our heart center is. So mantra is, very simply repeating words. But on a deeper level, repeating certain words that have been being repeated for 5,000 to 10,000 years. This is some of the estimates, how far back some of these mantras date, and they represent a vibrational reality. So on a certain level, everything in the world, in the physical world that we experience, there's a vibration happening. There's, on an atomic level, there's a vibration and also a rotation. If we think about like the Sufis and their dedication to twirling from their heart center, there's something very significant about that, because also on a physical level, everything's in rotation, from the electrons rotating the atoms that compose the matter that compose you, to this earth, which is rotating around the sun, which is in rotation around this galaxy, to galaxies that are in rotation. So there's something very symbolic about the circle, because the basic symbol for nature is rotating in a circle on the microcosm, on the macrocosm. So as we go around a mantra mala of beads, we're also completing that motion of a circle and a rotation. We can choose really any mantra we like. We can make one in English. We can say, Ram Dass uses the mantra, I am loving awareness, which is this great poetic double meaning, because it also means I am an awareness that is loving, And also, I am loving the experience of being aware as a human being. So it means that at both the same time. There is something to be said for these ancient mantras that have been used since time immemorial, as far as we can tell, well, dating back as far as perhaps humans date back, because where they came from is the ancient seers of India, the rishis as they were called. They discovered and uncovered certain vibrations had certain subtle effects on our being. You know, there's a certain effect red has on us when we see it in the visual spectrum, which is also a vibration, that's slightly different towards what blue has on us. And we know that, you know, yoga energetic terms will tell us the lowest chakra, Muladhara chakra, is associated with the color red. So there is perhaps something about being grounded that red produces. It's the lowest color on the spectrum. Blue, violet, these are some of the higher colors. So if we want to bring in more grounding in our life, maybe a red carpet would be better than a blue carpet. And these are really, really subtle things, but we can't get away from the fact of red's redness, right? If we were to change the color to blue, it would still have all of the characteristics of red, whether we called it blue or red, right? A rose is a rose, is a rose, is a rose. So in this way, certain mantras might have a certain subtle effect on our being. And we can certainly try different ones. We can go here and there. Right? The one from the book. The ancient rishis of India have given importance to this. It's actually 3 syllables. A, U, Om. Aum. And then science took a few thousand years, but science has caught up to say this is actually the vibrational resonance of the birth of the universe. So anywhere you go, you know, humans don't have tools to detect this. Science has come up with tools to. So we wonder, well, how did the ancient rishis know about Like, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that from what's still being handed down from them, they were touching on some very deep things. Subtle practice of mantra. And if we were to look into the system, the Vedic system where it comes from, we might take a figure like Gandhi, right? Gandhi, who led India to freedom from the British, who wrote the Constitution of India, who really helped. She's chanting a mantra right now. So this, all babies start out chanting bija mantras, seed mantras, basic phonetics. So Gandhi, we hear about, you know, all the great things he did, but if you were to ask Gandhi's classmates or his college classmates or his coworkers, they'd be like, that guy's a wreck. Like, you know, he is an absolute mess. He is fearful. He was known as he was known for fleeing a courtroom once because he was so nervous in presenting this argument. And what really caused the shift for Gandhi was saying the mantra Ram. Ram, 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 Ram. And what really turned him on to this was the Bhagavad Gita, because he was so worried about others' expectations in the world, right? He was worried about passing his exams in school. And then he failed so miserably in India, his father sent him to England. And was like, all right, let's just send him to finishing school over there. And then he didn't really know where he fit in. So he tried to dress up like a British gentleman in England and was just sort of laughed at with his, you know, big floppy ears. But through the Bhagavad Gita, he came to this idea of bhakti yoga, of selfless service, which frees us from any sense of failure or dealing with any success of our actions, because we suddenly devote and sacrifice and surrender every action we do to our dharma, to the highest purpose and potential of our lives, to God, you know, to truth, to the universe. And that frees us from worrying about the outcomes of things, those things that we can't control in the world. And instead, we only have to worry about what we put into the things that we do. So if we tried our best and we dedicated whatever our action is, be it brushing our teeth in the morning or planting a garden for our well-being, for the good of all beings, then we live free of worry, because we know I'm doing my best, and I know that even if I have to meet failure, me meeting this gracefully is perhaps the best lesson I can learn into this situation. So how does this tie into mantra and meditation? Well, mantra has this, music really hits us. We can hear a song on the radio and suddenly we're crying tears from 30 years ago because of what this song means to us. So when we can get out of our mind and bring ourselves to focus on something, be it a candle flame, the scent of an incense, or a mantra, we can really bring our awareness into a single point, which extends then into our life. So maybe we want to live a good, moral, upright life, right? This is something we all aspire to. And we have this desire, this intention, but then sometimes our life goes astray. Someone says the mean, hurtful thing to us, and we lose our center, and suddenly we're saying a mean, hurtful thing back to this person. So mantra is continually bringing us back to our center. It's bringing us back to our essence, which many of the ancient mantras are leading us to a vibrational reality that exists under the intellectual reality we normally operate within, right? Because we're usually operating in the realm of thought. Mantras asking us to set thought aside, and the more we do that, the more habituated we get to that, the more we just naturally start to do it. So that maybe if our mantra is Ram, which is a name for God in Sanskrit, which was Gandhi's mantra, we're waiting in line at the grocery store, and, and maybe our pattern has been to just kind of get impatient and tense up, but maybe because we start chanting mantra in our life, we just naturally start saying Ram, Ram, Ram. After Gandhi was shot at the age of 70, he just naturally went into reciting the name Ram. So he died chanting God's name on his lips because he was just habituated to do that. And if you read Gandhi's autobiography or were to ask him in his lifetime the secret of his success, he would probably say surrender and chanting to Ram and surrendering the outcome of my actions. And that allowed him to be a very effective political force because he wasn't doing this great master plan trying to outwit the British. He was just going into solitude, chanting his mantra Ram, and that freed him to act spontaneously. They could never calculate Gandhi's next move because he just kind of went with the flow of things, and he, took action boldly when he took it, but he wasn't attached to the actions, and therefore the fruit of his actions are still blossoming in this world. So I'm going to read from this book, which I just brought back from India. I found at a used bookstore, and I was quite, as someone who's had mantra practice in his life for 7 years, I was like, oh, this explains all the things I often try to explain to people. So I'll read chapter 3. You can actually get this on Amazon. So Mantras, Words of Power, it's called, by Swami Shivananda Radha. Different than the other Shivananda who taught yoga. When you begin to recite and practice mantra, you need to clarify to yourself what you want to achieve. What are your ideals? You can rightfully pin your hopes on the mantra to help bring these ideals into manifestation in your life in the purest form possible. But to what extent and how soon this will come to pass depends on you. Obviously, the more you put into it, the more you will achieve. The pearl exacts its price. As you chant, observe the mind. You may be shocked at how easily the mind can be sidetracked and how quickly you get bored, like the little girl from the book, right? You may even begin to doubt your sincerity in desiring God or desiring to become single-pointed as you watch the mind finding 95,000 excuses. It's amazing. It takes about 8 minutes to recite 108 recitations in a mala. It's amazing in the morning how much time the mind will spend telling you why you don't have time to do the 8-minute mantra practice. Like you'll spend a half hour like arguing in your head, and it's like, okay, I'll do it. Perhaps you tell yourself that doing a charitable act would be a more worthwhile way to spend the time. But you are missing the point when you start thinking this way. You will be of far more help to others when you have gained some spiritual focus. The choice of the mantra is extremely important because the greatest success lies with the mantra in which you can best surrender. So if someone comes from a tradition and teaches you a mantra and it doesn't really resonate with you, it's okay to say, I'm just going to find my own way. I'm going to find a mantra within Christianity or with Islam or within something that means more to me, because you can't fake authenticity. So it's good to just really understand who you are and what you stand for and within what tradition you most align with, and find something within that. There are many ways in which a mantra may be chosen. You can chant a mantra to which you simply feel drawn and naturally attracted, or if you are fortunate enough to find a true guru, your guru may choose the mantra in which you are best suited. The practice of japa yoga. In the practice of japa yoga, a mala is used to assist in counting the repetitions of the name of a divine aspect such as Shiva or Divine Mother. A mala is a string of 108 beads, usually made of sandalwood, tulsi, or radraska seeds. The number 108 is a holy number. One means one line symbolizing God, the supreme energy, the power from which all other lines, circles, or movements come. 0 is completeness, a circle representing God's creation as complete and perfect. 8 is the sign of eternity. Creation goes on eternally, so this brings in the time element. Time can be stretched or compressed. This understanding comes only through practice. The mind is constantly moving, using energy unproductively because the mental background noises mostly concern past or future events. Life is a chain of cause and effect. The beads of the mala, which are also an endless chain, and the endless thoughts are now given with each bead a specified significant meaning relating to a particular mantra. So I won't go on. This is a really good book, but in order to keep things moving, what we choose is important, certainly. But I think, especially in what I observe in myself, and perhaps often the new agey spiritual community I sometimes find myself surrounded is we can get too obsessed with this. We'll say like, oh, my guru, and like we're attaching like some great spiritual pride to this. Or, okay, my mala and my mantra. This is all okay, but it's really good to realize it's the heart we bring to things that matter. It's the love we bring to things that matter. Last time I was here, we chanted a mantra to Hanuman, this Hindu mythological deity symbolizing compassion and service. And fresh out of the Tibetan monastery, we'll do a Tibetan mantra this week. And I want to read from this book, which came into my life in a really sort of magical way, not how I would have expected. So I just finished in northeastern India, an 8-day personal silent meditation retreat, and I had been reading from the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. So Buddhism came in 4 vehicles from India to Tibet between the 8th and 12th centuries, right before Buddhism was essentially eradicated by the Mughal invasion in India. So none of these lineages are in conflict with one another. It's just 4 different gurus brought these teaching of Buddhism from India to Tibet, and those lineages are still very alive today. So the lineage that most emphasizes seated meditation is the Kagyu lineage. So I was fresh off of this personal retreat, fresh off of reading some readings of this lineage, and I just randomly Google mapped the word Kagyu, and I found out, oh, there's a Kagyu meditation center monastery 30 minutes from here. So I rented a motorbike and I went there, and it was this really abandoned monastery with one single Tibetan monk left. Very beautiful, very beautiful. And in the story my head wanted to tell is he would take me on as my teacher, and I would come to there. He was kind of like, yeah, you're welcome to come here. I don't have anything to teach. But then I was driving back and I saw this snack salesman, for lack of a better word, had a stack of dilapidated books there. And he didn't give me this book, but he gave me the title of this book. And he said, Lama Govinda, this German who had spent a lot of times in Tibet, he passed away in 1985. Lama Govinda built that monastery, And you should really read his book, The Way of White Clouds. And then I found this at a later stop in Katmandu, Nepal. And it's one of the most poetically beautiful books I've ever read, which as a writer I deeply appreciate. And, you know, sometimes a teacher comes in the red and yellow robes like we want it to, like our mind hopes it will be. But sometimes you just make yourself available, you kind of follow the whims of your heart, and you sort of find what you need. So that's how this book felt like it came into my life. And I'll just read a couple pages from it. Thus, even if I merely wanted to cross the courtyard to the buildings on my left side when leaving the temple, I had to turn to the right and circumambulate the whole temple in order to reach my destination. And while doing this, I had to pass rows of copper cylinders on which the great mantra of 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum, was embossed, and which contained thousands of repetitions of the same mantra, written on long rolls of thin but extremely durable Tibetan paper. While passing, I would give each of these prayer wheels a quick jerk at the same time and repeat the mantra in my heart, as Kanchenla had taught me, because no Tibetan who has any deeper knowledge of his religion is so crude as to believe that a mere mechanical action can benefit him, or that with every turn of the drum as many thousands of prayers as are written on the paper rise to heaven. This silly nonsense is mainly the invention of Westerners, who feel themselves superior by ridiculing the religious customs of other people without understanding the psychological approach or origin of those customs. So Lama Govinda had it out for us. But the Tibetan is not out to, quote, cheat the gods by placating them with sham prayers, or to escape the trouble of exerting himself and escaping the responsibility for his own deeds and conduct. Prayers in the Buddhist sense are not requests to a power outside ourselves and for personal advantages, but calling up the forces that dwell within ourselves. And that can only be effective if we are free from selfish desires. In other words, Buddhists do not put their faith in the power of gods residing in some heavens beyond, but they do believe in the power of motive and purity of faith and purity of intention. So what's the most powerful spiritual practice? The one we do with our full heart, with our full, sincere intentions to be of service to our world. You know, treating others as we want to be treated. So mantra can be very powerful, but simply repeating words after another are not so as powerful as the intention we bring to it. So that's really the takeaway here. Whether we decide to keep mantra in our life, or we have a prayer every morning that is meaningful to us, or we have a yoga practice, this is the biggest thing missing, in my view, of yoga in the West, which is a fairly new phenomenon. It's that they just do the exercise without remembering this is a prayer that we're putting our body and our whole self into, and it will only be exercise if we don't set up a positive motivation for it. And we start with ourselves, because if we are not servicing our own needs in life, we will be ill positioned to be of service to others. So with that in mind, we'll go through half of this to keep aware of the time. I invite you to simply close your eyes, inhaling deeply into the belly, exhaling. Om Mani Padme Om is a mantra asking for wisdom and compassion to be our guide. So in this way, it works within any denomination, asking Source, God, that the highest wisdom available in the world dawns within our mind, and that compassion guides our wisdom into our actions. So taking a deep inhale into the heart, where compassion lives within our being, and exhaling a smile on the face. And then inhaling, following our awareness from the heart to the third eye. And exhaling from the third eye, where where wisdom is said to live within the body. And then on each inhale, shifting the awareness from the heart center to the third eye. And with each exhale, shifting the awareness from the third eye to the heart. We feel in a place behind words the intermingling of wisdom and compassion within our being. And as we chant 50 or so repetitions of Mani, Padme, Hum, which you're very welcome and encouraged to join, we dedicate this practice for our well-being and for the good of all beings, for the flowering of our highest purpose and potential in this life. We surrender. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Before we come back, inhaling joy into the heart, exhaling a smile on the face, and positioning this practice into our own upward spiral, letting it be a catalyst for positive change, for our own well-being, and for the good of all beings. We surrender. Thank you for joining me in this mantra practice today.
Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the hope within.